This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joyce Nussbaum, Highland Park, New Jersey. Good Things to Eat as Suggested by Rufus Estes. Section 13, Rolls, Bread, and Muffins. Breakfast rolls. Sift a quart of flour and stir into it a saltspoonful of sugar, a cup of warm milk, 2 tablespoonfuls of melted shortening, and 2 beaten eggs. Dissolve a quarter of a cake of compressed yeast in a little warm milk and beat in last of all. Set the dough in a bowl to rise until morning. Early in the morning make lightly and quickly into rolls and set to rise near the range for 20 minutes. Egg rolls. 2 cups flour, 1 level teaspoon salt, 2 level teaspoons baking powder, 2 level teaspoons lard, 2 level teaspoons butter, 1 egg, 1/2 cup milk. Sift together the flour, salt, and baking powder. Work in the shortening with the fingers. Add the egg well beaten and mixed with the milk. Mix well, toss onto a floured board and knead lightly. Roll out and cut in 2-inch squares. Place a 1/2 inch apart in a buttered pan. Gash the center of each with a sharp knife. Brush over with sugar and water and bake 15 minutes in a hot oven. Excellent tea rolls. Scald 1 cup of milk and turn into the mixing bowl. When nearly cool, add a whole yeast cake and beat in 1½ cups of flour. Cover and let rise. Add 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 level teaspoon of salt, 2 beaten eggs, and 1/3 cup of butter. Add flour enough to make a dough that can be kneaded. Cover and let rise. Roll out 1/2 inch thick, cut in rounds, brush 1 heel each with melted butter, fold and press together. Set close together in the pan, cover with a cloth, let rise, and bake. Light luncheon rolls. Heat 1 cup of milk to the scalding point in a double boiler. Add 1 rounding tablespoon of butter, 1 level tablespoon of sugar, and 1 level teaspoon of salt. Stir and set into cold water until lukewarm, then add 1 yeast cake dissolved in 1/4 cup of lukewarm water and 2 cups of flour. Beat hard for 2 or 3 minutes, cover and let rise until very light. Add flour to make a dough that can be kneaded and let rise again. Knead, shape into small rolls. Set them close together in a buttered baking pan, let rise light, and bake in a quick oven. A pan of rolls. Scald 1 pint of milk and add 1 rounding tablespoon of lard. Mix in 1 quart of sifted bread flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, a saltspoon of salt, and 1/2 yeast cake dissolved in 1/2 cup of lukewarm water. Cover and let rise overnight. In the morning, roll 1/2 inch thick, cut into rounds, spread a little soft butter on 1/2 of each, fold over and press together. Let rise until light and bake in a quick oven. Rolls may be raised lighter than a loaf of bread because the rising is checked as soon as they are put into the oven. Raised graham rolls. Scald 2 cups of milk and melt in it 2 level tablespoons of butter and 1/2 level teaspoon of salt. When cool, add 2 tablespoons of molasses and 1/2 yeast cake dissolved in a little warm water. Add white flour to make a thin batter, knead until smooth, and set in a warm place until light. When well risen, stir in wholemeal to make a dough just stiff enough to knead. Knead until elastic, then place it in the original bulk. Flour the board and turn the risen dough out carefully. Pat out 1 inch thick with the rolling pin and make into small rolls. Place these rolls close together in the pan, brush over with milk and let rise until very light. Bake in a quick oven. Rye breakfast cakes. Beat the egg light, add 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 cups of milk, a saltspoon of salt, 1 1/2 cups of rye meal, 1 1/2 cups of flour, and 3 level teaspoons of baking powder. Bake in a hot greased gem pan. Breakfast cakes. Sift 1 cup of cornmeal, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 2 level teaspoons of sugar together. Stir in 1 cup of thick sour milk, 1/2 tablespoon melted butter, 1 well-beaten egg, and 1/2 teaspoon of soda, measured level. Beat hard and bake in gem pans in a quick oven. Scotch oat cakes can be either fried on a griddle or broiled over a fire. The meal for this purpose should be ground fine. Put a quart of the meal in a baking dish with a teaspoonful of salt. Pour in little by little just enough cold water to make a dough, and roll out quickly before it hardens into a circular sheet about 1/4 of an inch thick. Cut into 4 cakes and bake slowly for about 20 minutes on an iron griddle. Do not turn but toast after they are cooked. Scotch scones. 2 cups flour, 4 level teaspoons baking powder, 2 level teaspoons sugar, 1 level teaspoon salt, 3 level tablespoons butter, 1 whole egg or 2 yolks, 1 cup buttermilk. Sift together the flour, baking powder, sugar, and salt, and work in the butter with the fingers. Then add the buttermilk and egg well beaten. Mix well, turn onto floured board, and knead lightly. Roll out 1/2 inch thick. Cut with small biscuit cutter and cook on a hot griddle, turning once. Log cabin toast for breakfast. This is made up of long strips of bread cut to the thinness of afternoon tea sandwiches, then toasted a delicate brown. All are buttered lightly and piled on a hot plate log cabin fashion. Old-fashioned rusks. At night, make a sponge as for bread with 2 cups of scalded milk, a teaspoon of salt, yeast, and flour. In the morning, put 1/2 cup of butter into 2 cups of milk and heat until the butter is barely melted. Add this to the sponge, 1 cup of sugar, and 3 beaten eggs. Add flour to make a dough that can be kneaded. Let rise very light. Roll out 1½ inches thick, cut in round cakes, let rise, and bake a deep yellow color. Waffles Southern style. 1 pint of flour, 1 pint buttermilk, 1 egg, 1/2 teaspoon soda dissolved in little water, 1 teaspoon sugar, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 tablespoon cornmeal, 1 tablespoon melted butter. Mix as any other batter cake or waffles. Whole wheat popovers. Put 2/3 cup of whole wheat meal, 1 2/3 cup of white flour, and 1/2 level teaspoon of salt into a sifter and sift 3 times. Pour 2 cups of milk on slowly and stir until smooth. Beat 2 eggs 5 minutes, add to the first mixture and beat again for 2 minutes. Turn into hot greased iron gem pans and bake 1/2 hour in a rather quick oven. Berry muffins. Mix 2 cups sifted flour, 1/2 teaspoon salt, and 2 rounded teaspoons baking powder. Cream 1/4 cup of butter with 1/2 cup sugar, add well-beaten yolk of 1 egg, 1 cup milk, the flour mixture, and white of egg beaten stiff. Stir in carefully 1 heaped cup blueberries which have been picked over, rinsed, dried, and rolled in flour. Bake in muffin pans 20 minutes. Buttermilk muffins. Sift 4 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of cornmeal, and 1 level teaspoon each of salt and soda 3 times. Beat 2 eggs well, add a level tablespoon of sugar, 4 cups of buttermilk, the dry ingredients, and beat hard for 2 minutes. Bake in muffin rings or hot greased gem pans. 1/2 the recipe will be enough for a small family. English muffins. 1 pint milk, 2 level tablespoons shortening, butter or lard, 2 level teaspoons sugar, 1 level teaspoon salt, 1 yeast cake dissolved in 1/4 cup lukewarm water, flour. Scald the milk and add the shortening, sugar, and salt. When lukewarm, add the yeast and sufficient flour to make a good batter. Here one's judgment must be used. Beat well and let rise until double in bulk. Warm and butter a griddle and place on it buttered muffin rings. Fill not quite half full of the batter, cover and cook slowly until double, then heat the griddle quickly and cook for about 10 minutes, browning nicely underneath. Then turn them and brown the other side. When cool, split, toast, and butter. Graham muffins. Heat to the boiling point 2 cups of milk, add a tablespoon of butter and stir until melted. Sift 2 cups of whole wheat flour, 1/2 cup of white flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Pour on the milk and butter, beat, add the yolks of 2 eggs well beaten, then the stiffly beaten whites. Bake in hot greased gem pans. Hominy muffins. Sift twice together 1 1/2 cups of flour, 3 level teaspoons of baking powder, 1 level tablespoon of sugar, and 1 saltspoon of salt. To 1 cup of boiled hominy, add 2 tablespoons of melted butter and 1 cup of milk. Add to the dry ingredients and beat. Then add 2 well-beaten eggs. Pour the batter into hot greased gem pans and bake. Muffins. Sift a saltspoon of salt, 2 level teaspoons of baking powder, and 2 cups of flour together. Beat the yolks of 2 eggs, add 1 cup of milk, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and the dry ingredients. Beat, add lightly the stiffly beaten whites of 2 eggs. Fill hot buttered gem pans 2/3 full and bake in a hot oven. Quick muffins in rings. Beat 2 eggs, yolks and whites separately. Add to the yolks 2 cups of milk, 1 level teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of melted butter, and 2 cups of flour in which 2 level teaspoons of baking powder have been sifted, and last the stiffly beaten whites of the eggs. When well mixed, bake in greased muffin rings on a hot griddle. Turn over when risen and set, as both sides must be browned. Boiled rice muffins. To make muffins with cooked rice, sift 2 1/4 cups of flour twice with 5 level teaspoons of baking powder, 1 rounding tablespoon of sugar, and a saltspoon of salt. Put in 1 well-beaten egg, 1/2 cup of milk, and 3/4 cup of boiled rice mixed with another 1/2 cup of milk and 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Beat well, pour into hot gem pans, and bake. Boston brown bread. To make 1 loaf, sift together 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 cup rye meal, and 1 cup of graham flour, with 3/4 cup of molasses and 1 3/4 cup sweet milk. Add 1/2 teaspoonful of soda dissolved in warm water. Turn into a well-buttered mold, which may be a 5-pound lard pail if no other mold is handy. Set on something that will keep mold from bottom of kettle and turn enough boiling water to come halfway up to the mold. Cover the kettle and keep the kettle boiling steadily for 3 1/2 hours. If water boils away, add enough boiling water to keep the same amount of water in kettle. Put in molds and cut when cool. Crisp white corn cake. 2 cups scalded milk, 1 cup white cornmeal, 2 level teaspoons salt. Mix the salt and cornmeal and add gradually the hot milk. When well mixed, pour into a buttered dripping pan and bake in a moderate oven until crisp. Serve cut in squares. The mixture should not be more than 1/4 inch deep when poured into pan. Croutons. Croutons made coarsely are no addition to a soup. For the best sort, cut out stale bread into 1/2-inch slices, spread with butter, then trim away the crust. Cut into small cubes, put into a pan and set in a hot oven. If the croutons incline to brown unevenly, shake the pan. Egg bread. 1 pint of boiling water, 1/2 pint white cornmeal, 2 teaspoons salt, 2 tablespoonfuls of butter, 2 eggs, 1 cup milk. Bake in a moderate oven. Graham bread. Put 1 cup of scalded and cooled milk, 1 cup of water, 2 cups of flour, and 1/2 yeast cake dissolved in 1 cup of lukewarm water into a bowl and let rise overnight. In the morning, add a level teaspoon of salt, 2 rounding cups of graham flour, and 1/2 cup sugar. Beat well, put into 2 pans and let rise until light and bake 1 hour. Nut bread. 1 1/2 cups of white flour, 2 cups of graham flour, 1/2 cup of cornmeal, 1/2 cup of brown sugar and molasses, 1 pint of sweet milk, 1 cup of chopped walnuts, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Bake in a long pan for 3/4 of an hour. Oatmeal bread. Over a pint of rolled oats, pour a quart of boiling water. When cool, add 1 teaspoonful suet, 1 teaspoon butter, 1/2 cup of molasses, and 1/2 yeast cake dissolved in a little water. Stir this thoroughly, and then add 2 quarts sifted flour. Do not knead this and allow it to rise overnight, and in the morning stir it again, and then put it in well-buttered bread pans. Let it rise until it fills the pans and then bake in a moderate oven. It takes a little longer to bake than white bread. Oatmeal bread. Cook 1 cup of rolled oats in water for serving at breakfast, and 1 cup of molasses, 1 1/2 cups of lukewarm water in which is dissolved 1 yeast cake and 1 teaspoon of salt. Mix in enough flour to make a stiff dough, cover and let rise. When very light, stir down, put in pans, let rise light, and bake in a slow oven. The heat should be sufficient at first to check the rising, then the baking should be slow. Oriental oatmeal bread. Take 2 cupfuls of rolled oats, put in bread pan, turn on 4 cupfuls of boiling water, stir for a while. Add, while hot, a heaping tablespoonful of lard, or 1 scant tablespoonful of butter and 1 of lard, 2 teaspoonfuls of salt, and 4 tablespoonfuls of sugar, and 3 of molasses. Now add 2 cupfuls of cold water, making 6 cups of water in all, and if cool enough, add 1 yeast cake dissolved in a very little water. Now stir in all the white flour it will take until it is as stiff as you can manage it with the spoon. Set in warm place overnight, and in the morning with spoon and knife fill your tins part full, let rise to nearly top of pan, then bake an hour for medium-sized loaves. Raisin bread. Scald 3 cups of milk and add 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Cool and add 1/2 yeast cake dissolved in 1/4 cup of lukewarm water. Mix in enough flour to make a drop batter and set to rise. When this sponge is light, put in 2 cups of seeded raisins and enough flour to make a soft dough, but stiff enough to knead. Let rise again, then mold into 2 loaves. Let the loaves double in size and bake slowly, covering with another pan for the first 20 minutes of baking. Steamed brown bread. Beat 1 egg light, add 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 cup rye meal, and 1 1/2 cups of sifted flour with a half level teaspoon of salt. Add 1 cup of molasses, and after it is turned out, put in 1 level teaspoon of soda and fill with boiling water. Add to the other 1/3 cup more of the water. Pour into well-buttered mold and steam 4 hours. Southern corn cake. Mix 2 cups of white cornmeal, a rounding tablespoon of sugar, and a level teaspoon of salt. Then pour enough hot milk and water to moisten the meal well, but not to make it of a soft consistency. Let stand until cool, then add 3 well-beaten eggs and spread on a buttered shallow pan about 1/2 inch thick. Bake in a quick oven, cut in squares, split and butter while hot. Steamed cornbread. Sift together 1 cup of cornmeal and flour and a level teaspoon of salt. Put 1 level teaspoon soda in 1 tablespoon of water. Add to 1/2 cup of molasses and stir into the meal with 1 2/3 cups of milk. Beat and turn into a greased mold. Steam 4 hours, take off the lid of the mold and set in the oven 15 minutes. Steamed graham bread. Put into a mixing bowl 2 cups of sour milk, 1 cup of molasses, 1 level teaspoon of salt, 2 of soda, and then enough graham flour to make a batter as stiff as can be stirred with a spoon, adding 1/2 cup of seeded raisins. Pour into a 2-quart mold or lard pail well greased, Cover closely and set in a kettle of boiling water that comes 2/3 the depth of the mold. Cover the kettle and keep the water boiling constantly for 4 hours. Whole wheat bread. Scald 1 cupful of milk and 1 teaspoonful of butter, 1 of salt, 1 cup of water, and 1 tablespoonful of sugar. When lukewarm, add half a cake of compressed yeast dissolved in a little water and enough wheat flour to make a thin batter. Beat vigorously until smooth and let rise until very light. Add as much whole wheat flour as you can beat in with a spoon. Pour into greased tins, let rise until light, and bake in moderate oven for 1 hour. Asparagus fritters. Make a thick sauce with 1/2 cup of milk, 1 rounding tablespoon of butter, and 1/4 cup of flour. Stir in 1 cup of cooked asparagus tips and cool. Add 1 beaten egg and cook on a hot buttered griddle in small cakes. Corn fritters. 1/2 can corn, 1/2 cup flour, 1/2 level teaspoon baking powder, 1 level teaspoon salt, a dash of cayenne, and 1 egg. Chop the corn fine and add the flour, sifting with the baking powder, salt, and cayenne. Add the egg yolk well beaten and fold into the white beaten stiff. Drop by spoonfuls into hot fat 1/2 inch deep. Turn once while cooking. When done, drain on brown paper and serve. Crumb griddle cakes. Soak 1 pint of breadcrumbs in 1 pint of sour milk for an hour. Then add a level teaspoon of soda dissolved in 1 cup of sweet milk, and 1 well-beaten egg, half a teaspoon of salt, and flour enough to make a drop batter as thick as griddle cakes are usually made. Hominy cakes. To 2 cups of boiled hominy, add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Break the whole very fine with spoon or fork. Add 2 well-beaten eggs, 1/3 teaspoon of salt, and a saltspoon of pepper. Form into little cakes after adding enough milk to make it of the right consistency to handle. Set cakes on buttered dish and dust with a little finely grated cheese. Bake in hot oven and serve at once. Oatmeal cake. Mix fine oatmeal into a stiff dough with milk, warm water. Roll it to the thinness almost of a wafer. Bake on a griddle or iron plate placed over a low fire for 3 or 4 minutes, then place it on edge before the fire to harden. This will be good for months if kept in a dry place. Pineapple pancakes. Make a batter using 1/2 pound sifted flour and 3 good-sized eggs with a cupful of milk. This makes a very thin batter. When smooth and free of lumps, bake in a well-buttered frying pan, making the cakes about 8 inches in diameter. As soon as brown on one side, turn. When cooked on both sides, remove to a hot serving dish and sprinkle with sweetened pineapple. Bake the remainder of the batter in the same way, piling in layers with the pineapple between the cakes. Cut in triangular pieces like pie and serve very hot. Squash fritters. 2 cups of mashed dry winter squash. Add 1 cup of milk, 2 well-beaten eggs, 1 teaspoon of salt, a little pepper, and 1 heaping teaspoon of baking powder. Beat well and drop by spoonfuls into hot butter or cooking oil and fry. End of section 13.
Is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Catherine Fitz, Davis, California. Good Things to Eat, as Suggested by Rufus Estes. Section 14. Pies and Pastries. A good crust for great pies. To a peck of flour, add the yolks of 3 eggs. Boil some water, put in a 1/2 pound of fried suet and 1.5 pounds of butter. Skim off the butter and suet and as much of the liquor as will make a light crust. Mix well and roll out. Crust for custards. Take a half pound of flour, 6 ounces of butter, the yolks of 2 eggs, 3 spoonfuls of cream. Mix well and roll very thin. Dripping crust. Take a pound and a half of beef drippings, boil in water, strain and let it get cold, taking off the hard fat. Scrape off and boil it 4 or 5 times, then work it up well into 3 pounds of flour. Then add enough cold water to make dough just stiff enough to roll. This makes a very fine crust. Paste for tarts. 1 pound of flour, 3/4 of a pound of butter, and just enough cold water to mix together. Beat well with a rolling pin. Puff paste. Take 1/4 of a peck of flour, rub in a pound of butter, make it up into a light paste with a little cold waters, just stiff enough to handle. Then roll out to about the thickness of a crown piece. Spread over with butter and sprinkle over with flour, then double up and roll out again. Double and roll out 7 or 8 times. It is then fit for all kinds of pies and tarts that require a puff paste. Apple pie. Make up a puff paste crust and lay some around the sides of a dish. Pare and quarter apples. Put a layer of apples in the dish, sprinkle with sugar, and add a little lemon peel cut up fine, a little lemon juice, a few cloves, then the rest of the apples, sugar, and so on. Sweeten to taste. Boil the peels and cores of the apples in a little water. Strain and boil the syrup with a little sugar. Pour over the apples. Put on the upper crust and bake. A little quince or marmalade may be used if desired. Pears may be used instead of apples, omitting the quince or marmalade. Pies may be buttered when taken from oven. If a sauce is desired, beat up the yolks of 2 eggs, add half a pint of cream, little nutmeg and sugar. Put over a slow fire, stirring well until it just boils up. Take off the upper crust and pour the sauce over the pie, replacing the crust. Apple pie, Southern style. For 4 pies, half pound of butter, 1/4 pound of lard, half dinner teaspoon of salt. Work 4 cups flour and the above ingredients with a fork, and then mix with ice water. Mix it so it will just stick together. Then ready for use. Beaten cream pie. Line a plate with good paste. Prick in several places to prevent rising out of shape. Bake and spread over some jelly or jam about 1/2 inch thick, and cover with 1 cup of cream beaten stiff with 2 rounding tablespoons of powdered sugar and flavored with 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Large lemon pie. Mix 3 level teaspoons of cornstarch smooth in a little cold water, and stir into 3 cups of boiling water. Cook 5 minutes. Stir in 1 level tablespoon of butter, the juice and grated yellow rind of 2 lemons, 1 1/2 cups sugar, and the yolks of 3 eggs. Cook until the egg thickens. Take from the fire and cool. Line a large pie plate with paste and gash it in several places to prevent rising unevenly. Bake and fill with the mixture. Cover with a meringue made from the whites of 3 eggs beaten with 6 level tablespoons of powdered sugar. Set in the oven to color. Lemon pie. This is an old-fashioned pie because it is baked between 2 crusts, yet many have called it the best of all kinds. Grate the yellow rind of 2 lemons, take off all the white skin and chop the remainder very fine, discarding all the seeds. Add 2 cups of sugar and 2 beaten eggs. Mix well and pour into a paste-lined plate cover, and bake 30 minutes. Nut mince pies. 1 cup of walnut meats chopped fine, 2 cups of chopped apple, 1 cup of raisins, 1 1/2 cups of sugar mixed with 1 teaspoon each of cinnamon and allspice, and 1/2 teaspoon each of cloves and salt, 1/2 cup of vinegar, and 1/2 cup of water or fruit juice. Mix thoroughly. This quantity makes 2 large pies. Pineapple cream pie. 1/2 cup butter, 1 cup sugar, 1 can shredded pineapple, 1/2 cup milk, 2 eggs. Cream the butter, add gradually the sugar, then the pineapple, milk, and eggs well beaten. Mix well and bake in one crust like custard pie. When cool, cover with a meringue or with whipped cream sweetened and flavored with vanilla. Plain pie paste. Sift 1 1/2 cups of flour with a saltspoon of salt and rub in 1/4 cup of lard. Moisten with very cold water until a stiff dough is formed. Pat out and lay on 1/4 cup of cold butter rolled out in a sheet. Fold in 3 layers, turn halfway around and pat out again. Fold and roll twice more. This will make one large pie with 2 crusts. Cherry pie. Make a good crust, lining the sides of a pie pan. Place stoned cherries, well sweetened, in the pan and cover with upper crust. Bake in slow oven. A few red currants may be added to the cherries if desired. Plums or gooseberry pies may be made in the same way. Cherry pie. Roll 2 large soda crackers into fine dust and stone cherries enough to measure 2 cups. Line a pie plate with good rich paste and scatter 1/2 cup of sugar over. Sprinkle 1/2 of the cracker dust and over that 1/2 of the cherries. Repeat the 3 layers, pour on 1 cup of cherry juice and cold water, cover with paste, and bake in a moderate oven. Fresh raspberry pie. Line a pie plate with rich paste, fill with raspberries and scatter on sugar to sweeten. Cover with a crust and bake in a quick oven. When done, draw from the oven, cut a gash in the top and pour in the following mixture: the yolks of 2 eggs beaten light with a tablespoon of sugar and mixed with 1 cup of hot thin cream. Set back in the oven for 5 minutes. Green currant pie. Stew and mash a pint of rather green currants. Sweeten abundantly. Add a sprinkling of flour or a rolled cracker and bake with 2 crusts. Dust generously with powdered sugar. Green tomato pie. Take green tomatoes not yet turned and peel and slice wafer thin. Fill a plate nearly full. Add a tablespoon vinegar and plenty of sugar. Dot with bits of butter and flavor with nutmeg or lemon. Bake in 1 or 2 crusts as preferred. Lemon cream pie. Stir into 1 cup of boiling water 1 tablespoonful of cornstarch dissolved in a little cold water. Cook until thickened and clear. Then add 1 cup of sugar, a teaspoonful of butter, and the juice and grated rind of 2 lemons. Add the beaten yolks of 3 eggs and take from the fire. Have ready the bottom crust of a pie that has been baked, first pricking with a fork to prevent blisters. Place the custard in the crust and bake half an hour. When done, take from the oven and spread over the top a meringue made from the stiffly whipped whites of the eggs and 3 tablespoonfuls of sugar. Shut off the oven so it will be as cool as possible, giving the meringue plenty of time to rise, stiffen, and color to a delicate gold. Apple fritters. Beat the yolks of 8 eggs and the whites of 4 together. Add a quart of cream. Put over a fire and heat until you can bear your finger in it. Add 1/4 of a pint of sack, 3/4 of a pint of ale, and make a posset of it. When cool, put in nutmeg, ginger, salt, and flour. The batter should be pretty thick. Add pippins, sliced or scraped, and fry in deep fat. Apple slump. Fill a deep baking dish with apples, pared, cored, and sliced. Scatter on a little cinnamon and cover with good paste rolled a little thicker than for pie. Bake in a moderate oven until the apples are done. Serve in the same dish, cutting the crust into several sections. Before cutting, the crust may be lifted and the apples seasoned with butter and sugar, or the seasoning may be added after serving. A liquid or hard sauce may be served with the slump. If the apples are a kind that do not cook easily, bake half an hour, then put on the crust and set back in the oven. Bread puffs with sauce. When bread dough is raised light, cut off small pieces and pull out 2 or 3 inches long. Fry like donuts in deep fat and put into a deep dish. Turn over the puffs a cream sauce seasoned with salt and pepper. Cherry dumplings. Sift 2 cups of pastry flour with 4 level teaspoons of baking powder and a saltspoon of salt. Mix with 3/4 cup of milk, or enough to make a soft dough. Butter some cups well, put a tablespoon of dough in each, then a large tablespoon of stoned cherries and another tablespoon of dough. Set in a steamer or set the cups in a pan of hot water and into the oven to cook for a half an hour. Serve with a sweet liquid sauce. Cottage cheese tartlets. 1 cup cheese, 3 level tablespoons sugar, few grains salt, 2 teaspoons melted butter, 1 tablespoon lemon juice, yolks 2 eggs, 1/4 cup milk, whites 2 eggs. Press the cheese through a potato ricer or sieve. Then add the sugar, salt, butter, lemon juice, and the egg yolks, well beaten and mixed with the milk. Mix well and fold the whites of the eggs, beaten stiff. Line individual tins with pastry and fill 3/4 full with the mixture. Bake in a moderate oven for 30 minutes. Prune tarts. Wash the prunes thoroughly and soak overnight or for several hours. Cook in the same water. When very tender, rub them through a sieve. To 1 cup of the pulp add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, the yolks of 2 eggs beaten with 1/2 cup of thin cream and a few grains of salt. Mix well and sweeten to taste, then fold in the whites of 2 eggs beaten very stiff. Line small tins with paste, fill with the mixture, and bake in a moderate oven. Serve cold. Raspberry dumplings. Wash 1 cup of rice and put into the double boiler. Pour over it 2 cups of boiling water. Add 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar, and cook 30 minutes or until soft. Have some small pudding cloths about 12 inches square. Wring them out of hot water and lay them over a small half-pint bowl. Spread the rice 1/3 of an inch thick over the cloth and fill the center with fresh raspberries. Draw the cloth around until the rice covers the berries and they are a good round shape. Tie the ends of the cloth firmly, drop them into boiling water, and cook 20 minutes. Remove the cloth and serve with lemon sauce. Tart shells. Roll out thin a nice puff paste. Cut with a small biscuit cutter. With cutter take out the centers of 2 or 3 of these. Lay the rings thus made on the third and bake immediately. Shells may also be made by lining patty pans with the paste. If the paste is light, the shells will be fine and may be used for tarts or oyster patties. Filled with jelly and covered with meringue, a tablespoonful of sugar to the white of an egg, and browned in the oven. Bavarian cream. Soak 1/4 of a box of gelatin in cold water until it is soft. Then dissolve it in a cup of hot milk with 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Flavor with vanilla and set away to cool. Whip 1 pint of cream, and when the gelatin is cold and beginning to stiffen, stir in the cream lightly. Form and mold. Boiled custard. Heat 2 cups of milk in a double boiler and pour onto the yolks of 3 eggs beaten light, with 3 rounding tablespoons of sugar and a pinch of salt. Return to the double boiler and cook until the spoon will coat with the custard. Cool and add flavoring. Calla lilies. Beat 3 eggs and a rounding cup of sugar together. Add 2/3 cup of flour and 1/2 teaspoon of lemon flavoring. Drop in teaspoonfuls on a buttered sheet, allowing plenty of room to spread in baking. Bake in a moderate oven. Take up with a knife and roll at once into lily shape. Bake but 4 or 5 at a time, because if the cakes cool even a little they will break. Fill each with a little beaten and sweetened cream. Cocoa custard. For 3 cups of milk, allow 4 tablespoons of cocoa, 3 beaten eggs, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Heat the milk, stir in the cocoa, and cool a little before pouring over the egg and sugar. Bake in custard cups set in a pan of hot water in a moderate oven. Coffee cream. Have 1 1/2 cups of strong coffee hot. Add 1 level tablespoon of gelatin soaked in 1/2 cup of milk for 15 minutes. When well dissolved, add 2/3 cup of sugar, a saltspoon of salt, and the yolks of 3 eggs beaten light. Stir in the double boiler until thick. Take from the fire and add the whites of 3 eggs beaten stiff and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. Fill molds that have been dipped in cold water. Set in cool place, and when firm, unmold and serve with powdered sugar and cream. Coffee cup custard. 1 quart milk, 1/4 cup ground coffee, 4 eggs, 1/2 cup sugar, 1/4 level teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon vanilla. Tie the coffee loosely in a piece of cheesecloth and put into double boiler with the milk. Scald until a good coffee color and flavor is obtained, then remove from the fire. Remove the coffee. Beat the eggs and add the sugar, salt, and vanilla, then pour gradually on the milk. Strain into cups, place in a pan of hot water, and bake in a moderate oven until firm in the middle. Less vanilla is required when combined with another flavoring. End of section 14.
Is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Good Things to Eat, as suggested by Rufus Estes. Section 15. Cakes, Crullers, and Eclairs. Almond cakes. 1 pound sifted flour, 1/2 pound butter, 3/4 pound sugar, 2 eggs, 1/2 teaspoon ground cinnamon, 4 ounces of almonds, blanched and chopped very fine, 2 ounces of raisins, finely chopped. Mix all the dry ingredients together, then rub in the butter. Add eggs and spices last of all. Roll out 1/2 inch thick, cut into fancy shapes, and bake in a slow oven. Almond cheesecakes. Blanch and pound to a fine paste 1 cupful almonds. As you pound them, add rose water, a few drops at a time to keep them from oiling. Add the paste to 1 cupful milk curd together with a 1/2 cup cream, 1 cupful sugar, 3 beaten egg yolks, and a scant teaspoonful of rose water. Fill patty pans lined with paste and bake in a hot oven 10 minutes. Aunt Amy's cake. Take 2 eggs and 1 1/2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of sour milk, 1/2 cup of butter, 2 cups of flour, and 1 teaspoon of soda. Spice to taste. This is a good cake and one that is also inexpensive in baking. Use a moderate oven and bake in loaves rather than sheets. Baltimore cake. Beat 1 cupful of butter to a cream using a wooden cake spoon. Add gradually while beating constantly 2 cupfuls fine granulated sugar. When creamy, add a cupful of milk, alternating with 3 1/2 cupful pastry flour that has been mixed and sifted with 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Add a teaspoonful of vanilla and the egg whites of 6 eggs beaten stiff and dry. Bake in 3 buttered and floured shallow cake tins and spread between the layers and on top of the following icing. Put in a saucepan 3 cups sugar, 1 cup water. Heat gradually to a boiling point and cook without stirring until the syrup will thread. Pour the hot syrup gradually over the well-beaten whites of 3 eggs and continue beating until the right consistency for spreading. Then add 1 cupful of chopped and seeded raisins, 1 cup of chopped pecan meats, and 5 figs cut into strips. Baltimore cake. For this cake, use 1 cupful of butter, 2 cupfuls of sugar, 3 1/2 cupfuls flour, 1 cupful sweet milk, 2 tablespoonfuls baking powder, the whites of 6 eggs, and a teaspoon of rose water. Cream the butter, add the sugar gradually, beating steadily, then the milk and flavorings. Next the flour sifted with the baking powder. Lastly, the stiffly beaten whites, folded in at the last. Bake in 3-layer cake tins in an oven hotter than for loaf cake. While baking, prepare the filling. Dissolve 3 cupfuls sugar in 1 cupful boiling water and cook until it spins a thread. Pour over the stiffly beaten whites of 3 eggs, stirring constantly. Add to this icing 1 cupful raisins, 1 cupful chopped nut meats, preferably pecans or walnuts, and a half dozen figs cut into fine strips. Use this for filling, and also ice the top and sides with it. Bread cake. Cream 1 cup of sugar and 1/2 cup of butter. Add 1/2 cup of milk, 2 cups of flour sifted with 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and last, the stiffly beaten whites of 3 eggs and half a teaspoon of vanilla flavoring. Bake in 1 loaf. Bride's cake. 1 1/2 cupfuls of sugar, 1/2 cupful of butter, 1/2 cupful of sweet milk, 2 cupfuls of flour, 1/4 cupful cornstarch, 6 egg whites, 1 1/2 teaspoonfuls baking powder, 1 teaspoonful vanilla. Cream the sugar and butter, add milk, flour, and cornstarch, into which the baking powder has been thoroughly sifted. Stir in the whites of eggs quickly with the flavoring. Buttermilk cake. Cream 3 tablespoons of butter with 1 cup of sugar. Add 1 cup of buttermilk, 1 well-beaten egg, 2 cups of flour sifted with 4 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 cup of seeded raisins cut in pieces and rolled in flour. Chocolate cake. Beat 1 cup of butter to a cream with 2 cups of sugar. Add the yolks of 5 eggs beaten until lightly colored, and 1 cup milk. Sift 3 1/2 cups of flour with 5 level teaspoons of baking powder, and add to the first mixture. Stir well and fold in the beaten whites of 2 eggs. Beat in layer cake tins and spread the following mixture between while the cakes are nearly cold. Beat 1 1/2 cups of powdered sugar, 3 level tablespoons of cocoa, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and the whites of 3 eggs together until a smooth mixture is made that will spread easily. The exact amount of sugar varies a little on account of the size of eggs. Chocolate cake. Cook 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of milk, 1/2 cup of grated chocolate, and the beaten yolk of 1 egg together until smooth. When done, add a teaspoon of vanilla and cool. Beat 1/2 cup of butter to a cream. Add 1 cup of sugar slowly and beat smooth. Add 2 beaten eggs, 1/2 cup of milk, 2 cups of flour in which 2/3 teaspoon of soda has been sifted, and when well beaten, add the cool chocolate mixture. Bake in 4 layers and put together with a white boiled icing. Chocolate layer cake. Beat a 1/2 cupful of butter to a cream, adding gradually 1 cupful sugar. When light, beat in a little at a time a 1/2 cupful milk and a teaspoonful vanilla. Beat the whites of 6 eggs to a stiff froth and teaspoon and a half with 2 cupfuls flour. Add the sifted flour to the mixture. Then fold in the whipped whites. Have 3 buttered layer cake tins ready, and put 2/3 of the mixture into 2 of them. Into the 3rd tin put the remainder of the batter, having first added to it 2 tablespoons melted chocolate. Bake the cakes in a rather quick oven for 20 minutes. Put a layer of the white cake on a large plate and cover with white icing. On this lay the dark layer and cover with more of the white icing. On this put the 3rd cake and cover with the chocolate icing. Put into a graniteware pan 1 cupful and a 1/2 cupful water and cook gently until bubbles begin to rise from bottom. Do not stir or shake while cooking. Take it once from the stove and pour in a thin stream over stiffly whipped whites of 2 eggs. Beat it until thick, flavor with vanilla, and use 2/3 of this for the white icing. Into the remainder put a tablespoon and a half melted chocolate and a suspicion of cinnamon extract, and frost the top and sides of the cake. Chocolate loaf cakes. Cream 1 cup of butter. Add 2 1/2 cups of sugar and beat to a cream. Beat the yolks of 5 eggs light. Add to the butter and sugar with 1 cup of milk and 3 cups of flour in which 4 level teaspoons of baking powder have been sifted, the stiffly beaten whites of 5 eggs and 2 teaspoons of vanilla flavoring and 2 squares of chocolate melted. Bake in a moderate oven. Cocoa cake. Cream 1/2 cup of butter, add 1 cup of sugar and beat again. Add the beaten yolks of 3 eggs and a teaspoon of vanilla. Sift 2 cups of pastry flour twice with 1/4 cup of cocoa and 4 level teaspoons of baking powder. Add to the first mixture alternately with 3/4 cup of milk, beat hard, and fold in the stiffly beaten whites of 3 eggs. Bake in a loaf and cover with white icing. Cream cake or pie. This recipe makes a simple layer cake to be filled in various ways. Cream 1/4 cup of butter with 1 cup of sugar. Add the beaten yolks of 2 eggs and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now beat hard, then mix in 1/2 cup of milk alternately with 1 and 1/2 cups of flour sifted twice with 2 level teaspoons of baking powder. Beat just enough to make smooth, then fold in lightly the stiffly beaten whites of 2 eggs and pour into an oblong shallow pan that is buttered, floured, and wrapped to shake out all that is superfluous. Bake about 20 minutes. Take from pan and cool. Just before serving, split the cake and fill with a cooked cream filling or with a sweet thick cream beaten, sweetened with powdered sugar, and flavored to the taste. Cream layer cake. Cream 1/4 cup of butter well with 1 cup of sugar. Add the yolks of 3 eggs beaten light, 1/2 cup of milk, and then 1 and 1/2 cups of flour sifted twice, with 3 level teaspoons of baking powder. Stir in lightly, last of all, the whites of 3 eggs beaten stiff. Bake in a pan large enough to make 1 thin cake and bake. Cool and split, then spread out on 1/2 pint of cream beaten lightly, sweetened and flavored with a few drops of vanilla. Put on the top cake and dust with powdered sugar. Date cake. Sift 2 cups of flour with 4 level teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 level teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 cup of butter. Beat 1 egg, add 3/4 cup of milk, and mix into the ingredients. Add last 1 and 1/2 cups of dates stoned and cut into small pieces and rolled in flour. Bake in a sheet in a moderate oven, and serve warm or with a liquid sauce as a pudding. Eggless cake. 1 and 1/2 cups sugar, 1 cup sour milk, 3 cups sifted flour, 1/2 cup shortening, 1 teaspoon soda, 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon nutmeg, 1 cup chopped raisins, salt.
Feather cake. Sift 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of sifted flour, 3 level teaspoons of baking powder, and a few grains of salt. Add 1 cup of milk, 1 well-beaten egg, 3 tablespoons of melted butter, and a teaspoon of vanilla or lemon flavoring, or a level teaspoon of mixed spices. Beat hard and bake in a loaf in a moderate oven about half an hour.
Fig cake. 2 cupfuls of sugar, 2/3 of a cup of butter, 1 cupful of milk, 4 even cupfuls of flour, 5 eggs, 2 teaspoonsful of cream of tartar, 1 of soda, sifted with the flour. Mix the butter and sugar until creamed. Add the unbeaten yolks of the eggs. Add the milk and the flour slowly, beating all the time. Lastly, the whites of the eggs. Flavor 2 cupfuls of chopped figs and mix in. Bake quickly. Fig layer cake. Cream 1/4 cup of butter with 1 cup of sugar. Add 1 beaten egg, 1 cup of milk, 2 cups of flour sifted twice with 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Bake in layer tins. For the filling, chop 1/2 pound of figs fine. Add 1/2 cup of sugar and 1/4 cup of cold water. Cook in a double boiler until soft. Let cool and spread between the cakes. Fruit cake. 1 cup dark sugar, 1/2 cup butter, 1 cup molasses, 1 cup coffee, cold liquid, 3 eggs, 3 tablespoons mixed spices, 1 pound currants, 2 pounds raisins, 3 cups flour, 3 teaspoons baking powder, 1/4 pound citron. Gold cake. Mix the yolks of 4 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of sweet milk, 1/2 cup of butter, 3 cups of flour sifted 3 times, 1 teaspoonful of cream of tartar, and 1/2 teaspoon of soda. Beat very thoroughly. Use a moderate cake oven. Hickory nut cake. Cream 1 cup of butter with 2 cups of sugar. Add the well-beaten yolks of 4 eggs and 1/2 cup of milk. Sift 3 level teaspoons of baking powder twice with 2 1/2 cups of pastry flour. Reserve 1/2 cup of the flour and add the remainder to the first mixture. Now fold in the whites of 4 eggs beaten stiff, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, half a dozen gratings of the yellow rind of lemon, and 1 cup each of seeded and chopped raisins and of chopped hickory nuts mixed with the reserved 1/2 cup of flour. Bake in a moderate oven. Cover with a white icing and garnish without meats. Huckleberry cakes. Mix together 1 quart of flour, 1 teaspoon salt, 4 teaspoons baking powder, and 1/2 cup of sugar. Mix 1/3 cup butter, melted with 1 cup of milk. Add it to the flour and then add enough more milk to make a dough, stiff enough to keep in shape when dropped from a spoon, and drop by the large spoonful on a buttered pan or in muffin rings. Bake 20 minutes. Ice cream cake. Cream 3/4 cup of butter with 2 cups of fine granulated sugar. Add 1 cup of milk with 2 cups of flour and 3/4 cup of cornstarch sifted twice with 5 level teaspoons of baking powder. Fold in slowly the whites of 7 eggs and bake in layers. Layer cake. 1 1/2 cups of sugar, 2/3 of a cup of butter, the whites of 6 eggs, 1 cup of sweet milk, 2 1/2 cups of pastry flour, 2 teaspoonfuls of baking powder. Flavor with lemon. Put 2/3 of the mixture into jelly tins. To the rest add 2 tablespoons full of molasses, 1/2 cup of raisins, seeded, 3 figs, chopped, 1 teaspoonful cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoonful allspice, 2 tablespoons full of flour. Bake, when cool, together with jelly, having the dark layer in the center. Margarettes. 1/2 pound of peanuts, 1 pound of dates chopped finely, 1 cup of milk in the dates, and boil. Add peanuts. Make a boiled icing. Take the long branch crackers, spread the filling between the crackers, put on the icing and put in the oven to brown. Plain cake. Beat together 1/2 cup of butter and 2 cups of sugar until light and creamy. Add the well-beaten yolks of 3 eggs, 1/2 cup of milk, 3 cups of flour in which 3 teaspoons of baking powder have been sifted, and last the stiffly beaten whites of 3 eggs. Add any flavoring preferred and bake in a moderate oven. Plain tea cake. Cream 2 level tablespoons of butter and 1 cup of sugar together. Add 1 beaten egg, 1 cup of milk, and 2 cups of flour in which 3 level teaspoons of baking powder have been sifted. Bake in a sheet and serve while fresh. Raisin cake. 1 cup butter, 3 eggs, 1 1/2 cups sugar, 1 cup sour milk, 1 teaspoon soda, 1 cup raisins, little nutmeg, 3 cups flour. One can use 2 eggs and 1/2 cup butter. Then bake as usual. Rockland cake. 2 cups sugar, 1 cup butter beaten to a cream, 5 eggs, 1 cup milk, 4 cups flour, 2 teaspoonfuls baking powder, 1 teaspoonful essence of lemon. Snippodoodles. 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of butter, 1/2 cup of milk, 1 egg, 1 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Cream the butter, add the sugar, then the eggs, well beaten, then the flour, baking powder, and cinnamon sifted together, and the milk. Spread very thin on the tin sheet and bake. When nearly done, sprinkle with sugar. When brown, remove from the oven, cut into squares, and remove quickly with a knife. They should be thin and crispy. Snow cake. Beat the whites of 4 eggs stiff. Cream 1/2 cup of milk and 1 cup of butter and 1 cup of sugar. Add 1/2 cup of milk and 2 cups of flour, sifted twice with 3 level teaspoons of baking powder. Fold in the whites of the eggs last and half a teaspoon or more of lemon or vanilla flavoring. Spice cakes. For little spice cakes, cream 1/2 cup of butter with 1 cup of sugar. Add 1 beaten egg, 1/2 cup of sour milk, and 1/2 level teaspoon each of soda, baking powder, and cinnamon. Add a few gratings of nutmeg sifted with 2 1/2 cups of pastry flour. Stir in 1/2 cup each of chopped walnut meats and seeded and chopped raisins. Roll out thin and cut in shape, or put small spoonfuls some distance apart on a buttered pan and press out with the end of a baking powder can until as thin as needed. Do not add more flour. Bake slowly. Sponge cake. Whites of 2 eggs beaten to a stiff froth. Beat the yolks thoroughly, then beat both together. Then add 1 scant cup of granulated sugar, beat again, 1 scant cup of flour, beat again, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Sift the flour 3 or 4 times. Stir the baking powder in the flour, and lastly add 5 tablespoons of hot water. Sultana tea cakes. Into 3/4 pound of flour, stir a pinch of salt, a teaspoonful of baking powder, 3 ounces of butter and lard mixed in equal proportions, 3 ounces of sifted sugar, and 2 ounces of sultanas. Chop 1 1/2 ounces of candied lemon peel. Add that and moisten all with 2 well-beaten eggs and a little milk if necessary. Work these ingredients together with a wooden spoon, turn onto a board, and form into round cakes. Place them on a floured baking sheet and cook in a quick oven. 5 minutes before the cakes are done, brush them over with milk to form a glaze, and when ready to serve, cut each through with a knife and spread liberally with butter. Sunshine cake. Cream 1 cup of butter. Add 2 cups of sugar and beat. Add 1 cup of milk, the yolks of 11 eggs beaten until very light and smooth, and 3 cups of flour sifted with 4 teaspoons of baking powder 3 times to make it very light. Turn into a tube baking pan and bake 3/4 of an hour in a moderate oven. Tea cake. This cake is to be eaten warm with butter. Rub a rounding tablespoon of butter into 3 cups of flour sifted with a saltspoon of salt, 6 level teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/4 cup of sugar. Beat 1 egg light, add 1 1/2 cups of milk and the dry ingredients, and beat well. Pour into a long buttered pan and bake about 20 minutes. Do not slice this cake, but cut through the crust with a sharp knife and break apart. This mixture can be baked in muffin tins, but it saves time to bake it in a loaf. Velvet cake. 1/2 cup butter, 1 1/2 cups sugar, yolks of 4 eggs, 1/2 cup milk, 1 1/2 cups flour, 1/2 cup cornstarch, 4 level teaspoons baking powder, whites of 4 eggs, 1/3 cup almonds, blanched and shredded. Cream the butter, add gradually the sugar, then the egg yolks, well beaten. Beat well and add the milk, the flour, cornstarch, and baking powder sifted together, and egg whites beaten stiff. Beat well and turn into buttered shallow pan. Sprinkle with the almonds, then with powdered sugar, and bake 40 minutes in a moderate oven. White patty cakes. Cream 1/3 cup of butter with 1 cup of sugar. Add 1/2 cup of milk, 1 3/4 cups of flour sifted twice with 2 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, and flavor with a mixture of 1/3 teaspoon of lemon flavoring and 2/3 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring. Bake in a little plain patty pans and cover the top of each with white icing. Garnish with 2 little leaves cut from angelica and a bit of red candied cherry. Coffee cream cakes and filling. Roll good plain paste 3/8 of an inch thick and cut in rounds, and through a pastry tube force a cream cake mixture to make a border come out even around the edges of the round, and bake in a hot oven. Fill and frost. For the cream cake mixture, put 1 cup of boiling water, 1/2 cup of butter, and 1 level tablespoon of sugar together in a saucepan and boil 1 minute. Then add 1 3/4 cup of flour all at once. Stir rapidly, and when the cooked mixture cleaves from the pan, add 5 eggs one at a time, beating well between each addition. Do not beat the eggs before adding. Coffee eclairs. Put 1 cup of hot water, 1/2 cup of butter, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt in a small saucepan over the fire. The instant it boils, add quickly 1 and 1/2 cups of sifted pastry flour. Stir thoroughly for 5 minutes or till it all clears from the pan in a lump. Let it cool slightly and then add 5 eggs whole, one at a time. Mix very thoroughly, then drop the dough with a spoon onto a buttered baking pan in pieces about 4 inches long and 1 1/2 inches wide and some distance apart. Bake in a quick oven until well puffed up and done through. They will settle as soon as removed if not baked sufficiently. When cool, cut along one edge and fill with the prepared cream and frost with coffee icing. Crumpets. Scald 2 cups of milk. Add 4 tablespoons of melted butter, and when lukewarm, 1 level teaspoon of salt and 3 1/2 cups of flour. Beat hard. Add 1/2 yeast cake, dissolved in 1/2 cup of lukewarm water, and beat again. Let rise until light and grease large muffin rings and set them on a hot griddle. Fill each ring not over half full and bake slowly until a light brown. Turn rings and contents over. Bake a little longer, then slip rings off. Serve hot. If any are left over, split, toast, and butter them. Crullers. Scald 1 cup of milk, and when lukewarm, add 1 yeast cake dissolved in 1/4 cup of lukewarm water, and add 1 1/2 cups of flour, and a level teaspoon of salt. Cover and let rise until very light. Add 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of melted butter, 3 well-beaten eggs, 1/2 of a small nutmeg, grated, and enough more flour to make a stiff dough. Cover and let rise. Turn on a floured board and roll out lightly. Cut into long narrow strips and let rise on the board. Now twist the strips and fry until a light brown color and dust over with powdered sugar. Dutch crullers. Cream 1 cup of sugar and 1/2 cup of butter. Add 1 egg and beat. Then 1 cup of sour milk. Sift 1 level teaspoon of flour and add to the mixture. Now beat in enough sifted pastry flour to make a dough that can be rolled out. Cut in rings and take a hold of each side of a ring, twist it inside out. Fry it in deep hot fat. Individual shortcakes. Sift 2 cups of flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 level teaspoon of salt together. Add 2 well-beaten eggs and 1/2 cup of melted butter. Beat and pour into greased muffin pans until they are 2/3 full. Bake in a hot oven, then split and butter. Crush a quart box of any kind of berries, sprinkle with 1/2 cup of sugar, and use as a filling for the little shortcakes. Raised donuts. Scald 1 cup of milk. When lukewarm, add 1/4 of a yeast cake dissolved in 1/4 of a cup of lukewarm water, 1 teaspoon salt, and flour enough to make a stiff batter. Let it rise overnight. In the morning, add 1/3 of a cup of shortening, butter and lard mixed, 1 cup of light brown sugar, 2 eggs well beaten, 1/2 nutmeg grated, and enough flour to make a stiff dough. Let it rise again, toss on a floured board, pat and roll out. Shape with the biscuit cutter and work between the hands until round. Place on a floured board, let rise 1 hour. Turn and let rise again. Fry in deep fat and drain on brown paper. Cool and roll in powdered sugar. Sour milk donuts. Beat 2 eggs light, add 1 cup of sugar and beat 1/2 cup of butter and lard mixed, and beat again. Stir 1 level teaspoon of soda into 1 pint of sour milk. Add to the other ingredients and mix with enough sifted pastry flour to make a dough as soft as can be rolled. Take a part at a time, roll 1/2 inch thick, cut in rings, and fry. Use nutmeg, cinnamon, or any flavoring liked. These donuts are good for the picnic basket or to carry out to the boys at their camp. Sugar cookies. Beat to a cream 1 cupful of shortening, half lard, half butter, 1 cupful granulated sugar. Add 1 cup rich sour cream and 2 eggs unbeaten, 4 cupfuls flour sifted with 1 teaspoonful soda and 1/2 teaspoonful baking powder. Stir just enough to make a stiff dough. Toss onto the lightly floured molding board and knead another cupful of flour into it. This mixture gives the cookies a fine grain. Flavor with a little nutmeg, roll out, cut into cookies, and bake. Soft ginger cookies. Put a level teaspoon of soda in a measuring cup. Add 3 tablespoons of boiling water, 1/4 cup of melted butter or lard, a saltspoon of salt, a level teaspoon of ginger, and enough sifted pastry flour to make a dough as soft as can be handled. Shape small bits of dough, lay in the greased baking pan and press out a 1/2 inch thick. Bake carefully. End of section 15.
LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information and to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read and recorded by Betsy Bush, Marquette, Michigan, June 2006. Good Things to Eat as Suggested by Rufus Estes. Section 16. Candies. Candied violets. Gather the required quantity of perfect sweet violets, white or blue. If possible, pick in the early morning while the dew is still on them. Spread on an inverted sieve and stand in the air until dried, but not crisp. Make a syrup using a 1/2 pound of pure granulated sugar and a 1/2 pint of water. Cook without stirring until it spins a thread. Take each violet by the stem, dip into the hot syrup, and return to the sieve, which should be slightly oiled. Leave for several hours. If the flowers then look preserved and clear, they will not require a second dipping, but if they appear dry, as if some portions of the petals were not properly saturated, dip again. Now have ready a 1/2 cupful of melted fondant. Add a drop or two of violet extract, and a few drops of water to reduce the fondant to a thin, grayish, paste-like consistency. Dip the flowers in this one at a time, dust with powdered crystallized sugar, and lay on oiled paper to harden. Rose leaves may be candied in the same way, substituting essence of rose for the violet and a drop or two of cochineal to make the required color. A candy dipper or fine wire can be used for dipping the rose petals. Creamed walnuts. Cook 2 cups of sugar and 1/2 cup of water together until the syrup threads. Add a teaspoon of vanilla, take from the range and beat until thick and creamy. Make small balls of the candy and press 1/2 a walnut meat into each side. Drop onto a plate of granulated sugar. Crystallized cowslips. These make a prized English confection, much used for ornamenting fancy desserts. The flowers are gathered when in full bloom, washed gently, and placed on a screen to dry. When this is accomplished, the stems are cut to within 2 inches of the head, and the flowers are then laid heads down on the tray of the crystallizing tin, pushing the stalks through so the flowers shall be upright. When full, put the tray in the deep tin and fill with the same crystallizing syrup, pouring around the sides and not over the flowers. When dry, arrange in baskets or use in decorating. Fruit paste. Take equal weights of nut meats, figs, dates, and prepared seedless raisins. Wipe the figs and remove the stems. Remove the scales and stones from the dates. Mix well and chop fine, or run it all through a meat chopper. Mold it on a board in confectioner's sugar until you have a smooth, firm paste. Roll out thin and cut into inch squares or small rounds. Roll the edge in sugar, then pack them away in layers with paper between the layers. Glacé figs. Make a syrup by boiling together 2 cups of sugar and 1 1/2 cups of water. Wash and add as many figs as can be covered by the syrup. Cook until they are tender and yellow, then remove from the fire and let them stand in the syrup overnight. In the morning, cook for 30 minutes and again let them stand overnight. Then cook until the stems are transparent. When cold, drain and lay them on a buttered cake rack or wire broiler and let them remain until they dry. Pineapple marshmallows. This is a good confection for Thanksgiving. Soak 4 ounces gum arabic in 1 cupful pineapple juice until dissolved. Put into a granite saucepan with a 1/2 pound of powdered sugar, and set in a larger pan of hot water over the fire. Stir until the mixture is white and thickened. Test by dropping a little in cold water. If it balls, take from the fire and whip in the stiffly whipped whites of 3 eggs. Flavor with a teaspoonful vanilla or orange juice. Then turn into a square pan that has been dusted with cornstarch. The mixture should be about 1 inch in thickness. Stand in a cold place for 12 hours, then cut into inch squares and roll in a mixture of cornstarch and powdered sugar. Raisin fudge. Put into a saucepan 1 heaped tablespoon butter, melt and add 1/2 cup milk, 2 cups sugar, 1/4 cup molasses, and 2 squares chocolate grated. Boil until it is waxy when dropped into cold water. Remove from fire, beat until creamy, then add 1/2 cup each of chopped raisins and pecans. Pour into a buttered tin, and when cool, mark into squares. Simple way of sugaring flowers. A simple way of sugaring flowers where they are to be used at once consists in making the customary syrup and cooking to the crack degree. Rub the inside of cups with salad oil, put into each cup 4 tablespoons of the flowers and sugar, let stand until cold, turn out, and serve piled one on top of the other. End of section 16.